1969 Dodge Charger.
Is that a 69 Charger?
Either 69 or 60.
At our house.
All right, I'm going to call the city council meeting for City of Lake Elmo Tuesday, May 21st to order. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item B is approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion unless somebody has something they'd like to move or add, remove.
Motion to approve the agenda as written.
Is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second for approval of the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Agenda is hereby approved. Item C on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the May 7th, 2024 meeting. I'll entertain a motion for approval of minutes.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of May 7th, 2024. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are hereby approved. Assuming we don't have any public comments or inquiries this evening, nor do we have presentations, correct?
No.
All right. So going on to the consent agenda, item number 2 is approved payment of disbursements, approved planning commission regular meeting time change ordinance 2024-11, resolution 2024-062, approve Inwood 7th edition final plat extension resolution 2024-063, approved Birth and Haven zoning text amendment denial resolution, resolution 2024-055. Approved cross-country ski trail grooming grant, resolution 2024-064. Number 7, approve MPCA 3M administration grant agreement. Number 8, approve MPCA grant agreement amendment for well number 2 PFAS treatment. Number 9, approve resolution requesting a variance from the standard for state aid operations for the 15th Street North Improvements, Resolution 2024-069. Number 10, approve MPCA grant agreement amendment for South Area.
apologize. We put that in there hoping that they would get back to us on that, and they did not in time.
So number 10 is not in the agenda.
Yeah, we apologize. I missed that. I had a placeholder and hoping it'd get done, did not.
All right. Number 10 is not in the agenda, of the approved agenda. All right. So, number 11, approve budget calendar. Number 12, approve surface water fee appeal 8603 Cherrywood Trail North. Number 13, approve surface water fee appeal 5770 High Trail Avenue North. Number 14, approve special assessment abatements. Number 15, approve SCBA fill station and compressor purchase. Number 16, approve cable caster agreements. Number 17, approve city planner promotion and approve planning assistant job description and authorize posting. With that, I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda without item 10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of consent agenda without item number 10. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda as referred is approved. Jumping into our regular agenda, accept ISD 834 utility petition and authorize preparation of feasibility report, resolution 2024-065. Do we have somebody presenting on that?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We received a petition from the Stillwater Area School District looking to have connection to municipal water and sewer for the Oakdale Middle School. As they've been preparing, they haven't submitted applications yet, but as they were preparing their application, staff had several meetings with them. They expressed interest in connecting to sewer and water as part of the project. We followed up with a couple of different meetings where we presented what's in your packet is sort of a high-level feasibility study, just kind of looking at how those connections could be done, a couple of options, and trying to provide an order of magnitude of cost, make sure they understood that through this petition, they would understand the fees they would have to pay for these connections, and then that they would be responsible for the infrastructure costs as well. So we presented that information to them, had another meeting. They indicated they were still interested in moving forward. So we then went and worked with Bolton and Mink to get an estimate of cost for looking at the lift station upgrades that would need to be done and so forth, and then presented them with the cost of the feasibility study, and they agreed that they would fund the full study in the estimated amount of $21,000. So we're presenting here a petition and asking for authorization for that feasibility study.
Questions for city engineer?
I have a quick question. Just for clarity's sake, is there any cost that will come back to the city at all, or is it 100% school pays for it? There's no resources that are going to go towards any part of this?
Right. So a lot of times in these studies, it's the risk of the city is the feasibility report itself. If the project doesn't go forward, you're not assessing anybody. So the fact that they escrowed the money for the feasibility study means that you wouldn't have any risk there. When we get done with the feasibility study, and if we're going to have a real project, the other step we typically take is we ask them to sign a waiver of appealing the assessment before we move forward with design, so that we don't go through the whole process, assess them, and then have them appeal and try to negotiate. So that would be the second stop where we would, the second part of the process where we would serve to protect the city's interest in that.
And they did drop off the $21,000. They did drop off the $21,000 check also.
Another question.
Councilmember Beckstrom.
Another question. So in light of the most recent findings from the administrative judge on our water situation, does that change anything about this with pursuing a feasibility study on connecting to city water when we now have our answer about not having any additional water?
I don't think anything's substantively changed. The Oakdale Middle School is within the MUSA, is intended to be served with water and sewer at some point in time. So we're not quite there, especially with the sewer. So they would be allowed to still do their expansion and upgrade their system at this time, but they are within the MUSA, so the plan is for them to be connected at some point.
And are they, they're aware that doing this feasibility study is not a green light that they get water, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion on the item.
Move to approve resolution number 2024-065, declaring adequacy of petition and ordering preparation of a feasibility report for connection to public water and sanitary sewer for the Oakland Middle School, to be completed jointly by Focus Engineering, Inc. and Bolton and Mink, Inc. in the not-to-exceed amount of $21,000.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Councilmember Holtz?
I just want to say thank you to staff, who I know you've all been coordinating meetings now regularly between the requests for stuff with Oakland's, requests for the proposed elementary as well. So it helps to make sure that city is providing that information, make sure that as much as known as possible. So thank you for those efforts.
And just for council's information, we continue to meet with the school district for the 2 projects within our city every 2 weeks. And they're online meetings, so we don't have to go anywhere, but everybody gets together, we go through an agenda. Nate puts this together and manages it expertly for us.
Councilmember Beckstrom?
I probably will approve this or support it, but I just want to put it out there again. We still have a water issue, and we've got information back from the court now that they're not going to change our appropriation. They're leaving it as is, and so I hope at some point we have a dedicated conversation about what that means with development. I understand the need to understand with this, the costs that the school may be looking at if we get to a point where we have enough water, we can hook them up, but we still have a water issue, so I just want to state that for the record.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of resolution 2024-065, please signify by saying aye.
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 Resolution passes. Thank you. Next, we have Lake Elmo Townhomes, 8 final plat and PUD.
All right, so I've got a presentation that will be up on the screen here. And this is for Lake Elmo Townhomes by At Home Apartments. So here we're on the right slide here as an overview. The applicant is At Home Apartments. This project, as you will remember from the preliminary plat approval, it consists of 48 attached townhome units spread across 2 different lots with 1 outlot for stormwater. The zoning district and future land use here are village mixed use, and this is a planned unit development. In front of the city is a final plat and PUD request. I remind you that the February 20th meeting is when that preliminary plat was approved and PUD. So on the screen here, you can see this is what the final plat looks like. Again, those 2 platted lots with the stormwater outlot. On the timeline for this, for development review, the application was considered complete on the 1st of April, which creates a 60-day deadline of May 31st. Okay, and so on the screen here, you can see how those townhomes are laid out across those 2 lots on 2 different cul-de-sacs. So as far as final plats go, this was reviewed by staff. We have had a plat opinion provided by the city attorney. City engineers provided comment memos. Landscape architect has provided a comment memo, fire chief the same. And planning comments are found in the staff report. We have reviewed the layout, the configuration of the units as it was approved conditionally at the time of preliminary plat. And looked at the conformance again with those preliminary plat conditions of approval. So one thing I wanted to touch on here, and that's in the staff report, is parkland dedication. This is something we talk about at the time of final plat. This site is 7.56 acres in size, and there are no wetlands on it, so it's all buildable. It's all being platted in one phase. And so the applicant will be paying Parkland Dedication cash in lieu fee for the entire amount, which is 10% of that overall area. I've got a typo here on the screen. The gross acre requirement is 0.756 gross acres. That comes out to, in the end, just over $160,000 to the city's park fund. The applicant did pay some cash in lieu when the minor subdivision was processed on this about a year ago in this area. There are conditions of approval that are recommended in the review memos and that are found in the staff report and the resolution that is suggested for final plat and PUD approval. These conditions are mostly standard conditions. They require conformance with comments from the city staff and the plat opinion. It requires fees to be paid, including the AUAR fee and Parkland dedication, creates a deadline to record the final plat, requires a development agreement. And notably, I would also add that there is a requirement to construct a turn lane at Wildflower Drive and 39th Street North as part of this project. So I've got findings on the screen here. These were provided in the staff report, so I won't spend a lot of time talking about them. Essentially, this development is found to be, as proposed in this final plat, consistent with what was approved during the preliminary plat and PUD review, and also consistent with the city's guidelines. So that brings me to the recommendation, which is to approve the final plat and PUD for Lake Elmo Townhomes, contingent upon the conditions that are found in the resolution. That resolution would be 2024-066. So that's what I have formally prepared for you. The developer is here this evening if you do have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. First? Councilmember Holtz?
So to clarify, on that step 2 of the parkland dedication, saying that the fair market value was based upon the property sale, was that when there was one parcel still before the split?
Now, we looked at the overall purchase of both parcels that consist of this development.
All right.
So it was the post-split.
I just asked because the EMV for it is 749.
So we required that the developer submit purchase information, and so that was used to demonstrate the fair market value. So I think we have it accurate on this. We always can go double check, certainly
Well-
before the development
Well, yeah,
agreement is
just
completed.
EMV is not always the same as what's on the CRV, so.
Right, yep.
All right. Would the applicant like to say anything? Don't have to if you don't want to.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Leanna Stefaniak with At Home Apartments. I don't have anything really to add to what Mr. First presented. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for allowing us to come before you again, and also to thank city staff and members of the community who worked very closely with us to get our project to this point. It was a longer process, but as I said when we went before the Planning Commission several months ago, feedback and collaboration is important. It takes a good project and makes it a better project, and that is what we have before you tonight. So with your support, we're excited to be here, and we're anxious to get started, and we really look forward to being a member of the Lake Elmo community. Thank you.
Is there any questions for the applicant at this moment? None. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt resolution. Pull it back up. Thank you. Motion to adopt resolution 2024-066, approving the final plat and PUD requested by At Home Apartments LLC for the subject property based on the findings of fact and conditions of approval listed therein.
Support.
And we have a second. Discussion? Councilmember Beckstrom?
So this was the plat that we split out a while ago. And at that point, I supported the splitting of the land, but I also made it clear at that point I wouldn't be supporting any development on that until we resolved our water issue. And so I'm gonna stick with how I voted on all developments to this point and to what I said when this first came up probably a year ago, that I simply can't support development in the city when we still have a water issue that was just confirmed by the administrative court. So we need to figure that out before we keep building. So I will not be supporting this.
Anyone else?
Just say that, appreciate the developer and the collaboration. Again, I think it just shows when we work together, how smoothly things can go. I'm excited about this. I appreciate how we tried to stick with as few variances, as few requests as possible there, especially with the capacity, so I appreciate that.
Councilmember Holtz?
I would like to echo that, and also, in this case, because we are looking at apartments where our per capita use is less than in other places, to me, this is advantageous for the community, as this is a way to help, in good faith, help us to better work towards the 75/90 from the court orders. So with apartments, condos, with housing like this, these are the types of opportunities that help us to get closer to that goal. So thank you.
Okay.
Comment.
Councilmember Beckstrom?
So just one follow-up comment. While I understand Councilmember Holt's position and interest in bringing in higher density, which I don't think is the answer, and we've heard that's the answer, not the answer to all of our problems, I'd like to challenge this council that if we continue to support new developments, that we revisit the irrigation restrictions on the current residents in the city. If we have enough water to allow new developments, new houses, new apartments, then apparently we have enough water to allow our residents to water their lawns when they want to water their lawns and not restrict that. So we're wanting it both ways. And so I challenge us to have that hard conversation.
So there's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. I'm going to call the question. Motion to adopt resolution 2024-066, approving the final plat and PUD requested by At Home Apartments LLC for the subject property based on findings of fact and conditions of approval listed therein. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Nay.
All right, motion passes 4-1. And on the docket, we have Bridgewater final plat and Bridgewater Bank zoning text amendment. Mr. First again.
All right, so Bridgewater Village, we have this presentation. It should be on the screen here in a second. So as an overview, the applicant for Bridgewater Village is Bridgewater Bank Shares. That is a bank from the Twin Cities area. The project here consists of 4 commercial lots in the first phase of this subdivision. It would also create 2 outlots which would remain undeveloped for the time being, but would be guided for future residential development, and that is Village Medium Density Residential Area. There are also 2 stormwater ponds on this property in different outlots. The zoning for this property is mixed between commercial and village medium density residential. Relevant dates to you, most recently, the city council approved the preliminary plat on February 6th. And before that, on January 2nd of this year, the city council approved the comp plan amendment, rezoning, and conditional use permit for Bridgewater Bank. So to summarize the requests in front of you this evening, we do have a zoning text amendment, and I'll talk about this first. That relates to a parking standard for financial institutions. The application for that was considered complete on April 11th, and the 60-day would end on June 10th. For the final plat, that was complete at the beginning of April, and so at the end of May here, that 60-day review period is up. So again, I'll talk first about the zoning text amendment, and just to be clear, the zoning text amendment and the final plat are being processed as one item here, but they are 2 separate requests. So just remember that throughout this presentation. So the zoning text amendment was initiated by the applicant here, Bridgewater Bank Shares. This is a proposal to effectively reduce the parking requirements for a financial institution. Specifically, this came up because Bridgewater Bank is looking to locate their bank in this development. They are looking to locate that bank in this development. It'll be 6,000 square feet as currently proposed. The last amendment to the parking standards specific to banks, and we aren't really clear when that last happened. It does appear that that was at least 5 or more years ago. So what do we mean when we talk about a financial institution? Really, this is defined as a bank. So bank, savings and loan associations, savings banks, credit unions, lending establishments, in situations where there's walk-up or drive-up service. Where can financial institutions locate in the community? Pretty much anywhere within the MUSA where there's commercial uses allowed, a bank can locate. So there are 8 zoning districts where you can locate a bank. So just to kind of summarize where we're at with this request, currently the code requirement is 1 space per 100 square feet of usable floor area. The applicant has proposed to change that to 1 space per 200 square feet of usable floor area. And in review of this application and review of the current code, staff find that we would like to recommend 1 space per 200 square feet of gross floor area. And so the difference in this is really that addition of that gross floor area, which would be the footprint of the bank. That is a very objective thing to measure. As opposed to usable floor area, which can get a little bit subjective. So we want to apply this consistently and also just have the standard be similar to the rest of the standards in the parking requirements section of code. So Bridgewater Bank did provide some data on their banks as far as the number of spaces that they have at some other locations across the metro and also the number of full-time employees. So that's helpful to kind of understand how their operations are. But so in the example that's being proposed here with the proposed code section applied to it, we would have a 6,000 square foot bank building, likely with fewer than 15 full-time employees. The current code would require 60 stalls and the proposed code would require 30. So how does this request stack up against some of our neighboring communities? Most of the neighboring communities, Stillwater, Woodbury, Forest Lake, have a similar requirement, and sometimes they have banks identified, other times they don't have banks specifically identified, they're using offices or retail uses as well. Cottage Grove, Blaine, and Hugo have even, I guess, less parking requirements for banks. So the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing at the regular meeting on May 13th. We did not receive any comments before or after that meeting, or we also didn't have anyone at the meeting comment. So provided in the staff report are a couple of findings to allow the city to approve that zoning text amendment. Staff are supportive of that amendment for the reason that it's going to bring the language consistent with the code, and it's also going to be consistent and compatible with neighboring communities. All right, so the final plat and PUD, again, we've had a plat opinion provided by the city attorney, the city engineer, landscape architect, and fire chief have all provided review memos. Planning staff have reviewed the development as well. And sorry, this is, just to be clear, not a PUD, it's a final plat, so that's a typo on the slide. So you can see the final plat on the screen here. It's got those lots that we have discussed, 4 commercial lots, 2 stormwater outlots, and 2 future residential development lots. Touching on parkland dedication, in this case, we've got 24.13 gross acres. Now, we're looking at the parts of the development that are going to be platted now and not in the future. And so any of those areas that'll get platted now and not replatted, those are the ones that we would require park dedication for in this first phase. And so that comes out to a requirement of 1.547 gross acres. Applying the fair market value, which we've used the the fair market value from purchase documents, we've calculated that. The development in this first phase will be required to pay just over $166,000. I'll just note to you again that if and when that future residential development occurs, that is when the city would take parkland dedication for those outlots. So the developer has been compiling their final construction plans, and in reaction to some of the city review memo comments, they did provide 6 different items that they were looking to work through with staff in reaction to and to help them kind of keep moving on their construction plans. And so I did want to take a moment to just kind of talk about these in the next 2 slides. The first item relates to commercial lot side yard easement widths. We can work through this as staff. We don't think that any more review of that particular comment is necessary. There was a comment on easement grading, and specifically, the city has specified that the developer will be required to have parts of the drainage and utility easements effectively allow for utilities to be put through those areas, like small utilities. Fiber optic is an example of one small utility that could run in such areas. And so there has to be an acceptable slope in drainage and utility easement areas. And so the city did provide comments to that effect. We have worked through the ramifications to meet that requirement, which would be to increase the size slightly of those stormwater pond outlots. And I'll show you on the next slide here, just to advance it quickly. This is the impact of that particular comment. So you can see that we have outlots. If I can get the cursor to show up. Outlot C on the south part of this development. In order to meet the requirements for slope in the drainage and utility easement areas, that outlot would need to be slightly increased in size, so it would move the property boundary just to the east a little bit, about 16 feet there. And then in outlot B, where the cursor is now hovering, you've got a change in the the western property boundary of 12 feet and the northern property boundary of 8 feet. That would be needed to meet the city's requirement.
Jack, is that city standard? Usually, I mean, I'm just used to pond areas going to the PI, not having necessarily a bench in them, but.
So the pond areas have a standard of whatever their slopes are, depending on whether they're an
Yeah.
infiltration basin or a wet pond. But what we're doing is we build our sidewalks up to the back of as a matter of standard, we put our sidewalks up to the back of the right of way. So we have a couple of examples where you have a sidewalk and then you have a pond slope immediately starting. We want to make sure that we have shoulders on the sidewalks. We also want to make sure that the small utility companies install the small utilities in the easement area. And as soon as you start going to steeper slopes right away, the crews, when they get out there, whether they're told to or not, they start putting it in the right of way if the slopes become too steep right away. So
Can you
we've
go
been.
back to that screen, please?
So we've been trying to get the boulevards so our standard is to get the right-of-way graded to a standard boulevard and then to maintain decent slopes within the 10-foot drainage and utility easement, which gives us a fighting chance to get the small utilities installed in those areas.
So we're not talking about sidewalks in these red areas,
Not in
right?
this one, but that's why it's our standard, but you have
So it is a city standard, which was my original question.
it's been a standard practice because it's
Standard
been
practice.
an issue.
Okay.
Because we've been having issues of not getting the utilities installed where they are and in some cases, we've had sidewalks undermined without the clear zones.
All right. I just have a different viewpoint on that. Okay, thanks.
So I'll keep moving, and, obviously we have the developer and their team here to speak to their request. So the next one to work through is this comment number 3, which is Stillwater Way Trail and stormwater conveyance. So we've got a trail that was required on I'm gonna go back to the master plan here, and you can not see it, apologies, it's not super easy to see on this screen here, but the city has required a trail on the south side of Stillwater Way, but on the north side of this development. Fitting that trail in this corridor is a challenge given the existing way that stormwater drainage is managed. So there are a couple alternatives in terms of design. We haven't found one that has been approved yet. One alternative that seems like it has some promise is to have that trail on the north side of these future residential outlots. And so it'd be, if you were looking at a cross section, it would be Stillwater Way, going south Stillwater Way, the drainage ditch, and then the trail in a trail easement area, and then the rest of the future residential development. So that is one way to make this situation work a little bit better. We have, to do a little bit more review there to make sure that that is a good way to do it, but it seems like it has some promise. So that was a condition that has been added to the resolution for the final plat approval. Driveway access and spacing was also a point of conversation. One of the things that we would like to do is just remove a few of the curb cuts that are on the north side of the future residential outlots. They don't seem to be working well, and I think we can reconsider future curb cuts if there is a residential development proposed. So there is a comment or a condition added to that effect. Number 5 is internal turn lane taper and queuing lengths. I would note that review staff are currently working on this yet, but this item is already covered in the engineering memo attached to the staff report. That's comment number 3. And then lastly, the wet pond safety and maintenance benches. The applicant is working through the watershed review process, and so it's unclear exactly whether outlot B, I'm gonna go back to the screen here, outlot B is this northern stormwater outlot. It is possible that if the developer doesn't get their alternative design approved by the watershed, that outlot will need to increase in size. Because we're not sure what is gonna be the ultimate need for that outlot in terms of size, we have put a condition in this resolution that says we will allow a review of the final plat and a revision should the outlot need to be resized to meet the watershed's requirements. All right, so those are the items that have been added to the final plat resolution. There is a printed resolution that has those conditions in it in front of you, and it should also be updated in the Google Drive. So to summarize, there are 23 conditions of approval proposed. Most of these are standard. Some of those we've already discussed. There are also findings that are provided in the staff report. And so that is what I have prepared for you this evening. We have, I'll remind you, 2 requests, the zoning text amendment, which has an ordinance and a resolution for summary publication. And we also have the final plat resolution. That one's 2024-067. So as noted, the developer and their team is here and they're happy to speak to their request.
Just a question, Nathan.
Yep.
You mentioned 23 conditions, and in our packet, I've got 16 in the resolution.
Yep.
What am I missing?
Mayor, you are correct. So I have printed out a revised resolution
Oh, is
that has
what
the
you handed us?
conditions.
Thank
Yep.
you.
That's in front of you, and it should be updated in the Google Drive, I believe. So that is what I'm referring to. So these conditions, 20, 21, 22, and 23, those have been added.
Thanks. Any questions for Mr. First? The applicant like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Matt Alexander. I'm with North Shore Development Partners representing Bridgewater Bank. Just a lot of things moving here the last few days, trying to get to the final, just to understand exactly pond sizing, road turn lengths, things like that. It's pretty typical. I think staff has done a great job working through a lot of these issues, and we believe we're going to be able to work through all of them at a staff level going through. With these engineering standards, we understand the commercial lot side yard setback easements are going from 10 to 5. That's great. Skipping number 2, number 3, we agree moving the trail possibly to the north side of the future residential. It also can be a nice feature for having the future homes be able to access the trail easier. Let's see, driveway access and spacing from a 100-foot separation, I believe, is consistent with what we've been speaking with the city engineer. So that matches up with our plat. And the certain curb cuts specifically up on outlots E and D, we're in agreement with. So we've worked through many of these items. The one that is a challenge for us is the easement grading a little around the storm pond, but I think we're gonna be able to work through it. It is what it is. We understand that the watershed has their requirements as well, and we're gonna abide by those, so.
Any questions for the applicant? Councilmember Ahern?
Yeah, sorry, so a couple questions with so actually for the zoning amendment, can you just talk a little bit, when you mentioned, you used the word usable versus gross, is that any specific reason for the difference there?
How about I start, council, and then defer to the applicant. So usable is what's currently in the code. And in a review of that standard, it was apparent that that was the only land use where usable floor area seemed to be used. And so the reason staff is at a minimum preferring the gross is simply to bring it in line with the other land use standards for parking. So that's what I have, but I'm happy to have this.
So maybe I misunderstood, so it wasn't the bank choosing that language, that was just what was in our code previously?
Right, they were using
Got
what
it.
was in the code previously.
Okay, perfect. And then just one more, I think this one would be for the bank. So you mentioned the 15 full-time employees. Again, I'm just, does that mean there's no part-time? Is there 30 part-time? What does that look like?
Jerry Bach with Bridgewater Bank. I mean, it's an estimate, 15 full-time. We don't have that at our other sites that have that approximate square feet. I mean, it'd be a couple part-time people coming and going, so. But we think 30-ish stalls should be perfect. 60 is way too much. Would rather have green space and gardens and lawns than tar.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt resolution 2024-067, approving the final plat requested by Bridgewater Bank Shares, Inc. for a Bridgewater Village based on the findings of fact and conditions of approval listed therein.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Any discussion?
I guess I would just say thank you for bringing this to our attention, right? It's one of those ones that probably would never have really noticed unless you guys brought it to our attention. So it does seem like it matches well with what other communities are doing. Definitely knowing how times are changing with how people are using banks, it makes sense. So I appreciate bringing it forward. I think these are the things we wouldn't catch otherwise.
I appreciate the owner and their consultants working with staff and staff working with the developer at this point. We have Lake Elmo Bank in Lake Elmo, and Lake Elmo Bank was started in 1911, right? So banks, when they come into your community, are there for a long time, right? And they become part of your community fabric, if you will. And for one, I'm I'm excited to have another business in town that is going to be a part of our community and offer opportunities for the people who are here and bring some more good to Lake Elmo. So, thank you. Councilmember Holtz.
To reflect on that as well, I mean, a lot of these things I look at from the 5-year, 20-year, 50-year picture. And as the mayor said, banks, this isn't a temporary business. We're not talking about interim use. This is something that'll hopefully be a successful entity for our community for generations to come. And I also appreciate, because we heard from day one, the water reuse would be a part of this, using those pondings for irrigation. That is greatly appreciated. We're doing it right the first time, working with staff. So, thank you.
All right, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of motion to adopt resolution 2024-067, approving the final plat requested by Bridgewater Bank Shares, Inc. for Bridgewater Village based on findings of fact and conditions of approval listed in. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2024-12, approving the zoning text amendment to parking requirements for financial institutions requested by Bridgewater Bank Shares, Inc.
Support.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, I'll call the question. Motion to adopt ordinance 2024-12, approving zoning text amendment to parking requirements for financial institutions requested by Bridgewater Bank Shares, Inc. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Hearing none, ordinance 2024-12 passes.
Motion to adopt resolution 2024-068, approving the summary publication of ordinance 2024-12.
Support.
All right, we have a motion and a second for publication. Believe there's, unless somebody has something they want to say, but I'll just call the question. All those in favor of the motion for publication, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, and we're all good there. Thank you. So, council reports. Anything to report? Councilmember Dragisich.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that during the past week, I've had several discussions with the engineer and finance on questions I had about things that have occurred over time and trying to get better up to speed with the city and where we got to how we got. And I think I maybe created some frustration, but I wanted to just publicly thank them for answering my questions and being courteous, and I didn't have to wear a bulletproof vest tonight. So thank you, I really appreciate your help, and it's been good since the time I've been on here.
Thank you. Councilmember Holtz.
Last week, the 3M settlement group, Priority 1 met. Myself, our engineer, Jack, and our city administrator, Clark, were in attendance, and I'm sure others might mention this as well, but the eye-opening reality, and we knew this was going to happen, but the settlement dollars will be gone. The issue is they're going to be gone far sooner than we thought. And there's more capital expense that's occurring than was thought. The O&M costs, the operation and maintenance costs are far higher than they anticipated. Cities kind of were letting them on to say your costs are lower than you think, but O&M costs alone are going to be close to 16 to 18 million a year in a couple of years for all the infrastructure that's being put in. And that's not even including some of the projects that we have in line for the O&M costs that those will have. The good news is when the settlement does run out, and it still is going to be a few years out, the state will transition then to what is called the consent agreement. And that was an agreement made by 3M and the state before the settlement. It doesn't have a financial limit. What it does have are certain conditions that has to be similar communities as to who's affected, and that has to be based upon the health index from the Department of Health. So the city, I know city staff are as well, and I've been pushing this as well with our co-trustees, that we need to make sure that we have it clarified that there's a smooth transition between the settlement versus what it's going to be with the consent agreement. So it won't be the same process on the inside, but for the outside, for residents, for users of water, the goal is to make sure that the experience is the same, that you continue to have water where if it does have pollution, it is treated, it is remedied, and you can count yourself to be safe with you and your family. So there's a pretty big update. The numbers are pretty substantial. The settlement was $850 million, so it's a bit of a sticker shock to know that the end is closer than not. But I just want to reiterate to the public that there is a process then for that next step.
Thank you. I have no report. Councilmember Beckstrom?
I just want to recognize and congratulate Ashley Monterusso, is that how I say that? On her promotion to city planner from a planning assistant. I think she's only been with us a short time, maybe 6 months, and apparently is doing an outstanding job. So congratulations. It's wonderful to have staff that we can continue to grow in the organization.
Thank you. Councilmember Hearn?
No report.
Administrator Schroeder?
This is my last meeting as your administrator, so I want to thank the council for inviting me to come back. It's always enjoyable to come in and engage with the city. I find the work engaging and interesting, so I enjoy doing this. So thank you for that. I want to thank the staff for all their hard work and coordination that they put together. You guys are excellent, and it's been a very good experience for me, so thank you to the staff. Just for council information, I will be here up to 2 weeks after Nicole starts on June 3rd, and that's if she wants me around. If she doesn't, I'll go back to retirement. And then I have in the contract up to 10 hours a week for transitioning for the water and the grants especially. Some of these grants are fairly complicated in how we're tracking them, and we want to make sure we're not dropping the ball on some of the committees that I'm on, and I want to make sure that we transition that smoothly to make sure that Nicole not only gets to run the city operations and then learn the water operations. So I'll be in and out of the office for a little bit for a while. So, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie?
No report, thank you.
Krista?
I just want to remind our residents and everyone that our summer hours will begin next week on Memorial Day week. So they will be 8 to 4:30 Monday through Thursday and 8 to noon on Fridays.
Great. Director Stovall?
No report.
Nathan?
Yeah, just one report from me regarding the Old Village area study. So there will be a survey that will be available for community members to take that asks questions about their thoughts on the village area. Sorry, the mic's not on. Now it's on. There is a survey that will be available on the city's website. We will provide information about the survey to provide feedback on the Old Village area. So residents should be on the lookout for a link on the city's webpage or anywhere else that they would normally find one.
Are there any other platforms that you're looking at trying to get that survey out to people?
Absolutely. Yep, we're looking at a variety of different ways, including flyers and postcards to send out to folks. There will also be updates periodically in the Fresh.
All right. Thank you. Chief?
Next month, we'll start actively recruiting paid-on-call firefighters, so I'll work with our administrative service director and get some stuff prepared. So next month, you should see some recruitment materials for those positions, so.
Okay. Larissa?
Just continued reminders to sign up for PAYA, our new utility billing portal.
Thank you. Jack?
No report.
Council?
No report.
All right. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:53.
Every time.
Yeah.
You're not checking your mail or what?
No.
No, we all got to go.
Never.